Hi, Acadiana. I'm Meteorologist Dave Baker. Happy Wednesday to you. We're still watching Hurricane Rafael, which has strengthened once again this morning, and it's now on the borderline and becoming a Category 3 hurricane, and the National Hurricane Center thinks it will be a Cat 3 before it reaches Cuba. 21.4 north, 81.9 west. Those are the 9 o'clock coordinates. Pressure down to 960. And I will tell you, the models are kind of all over the place right now. And part of the reason is we're a little bit in uncharted territory. So models really thinking that we should be going into winter are having a hard time forecasting a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico because it's so unusual, and computer models use past weather data. And when you don't have a lot of hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico during the month of November, even the models have a hard time of doing some forecasting. So we're going to get to all that in just a little bit, but we still got some bigger thunderstorms that are out there here around the 9 o'clock hour this morning. Some big stuff over Evangeline starting to slide into portions of St. Landry Parish. And we've got some scattered storms that are down into Vermilion, Acadia. Some of that will reach parts of Lafayette, maybe into St. Martin Parish, but I do think a lot of this is going to be winding down here over the next several hours, and we'll see less rain as we get into the afternoon. Ahead of the front, ahead of those storms, temperatures will stay in the 80s. Behind the front, temperatures will probably stay in the 70s most of the day. So that's kind of the dividing line. And there's a big trough digging across the west that's going to get cut off. And it's a cold system, too, as we've got quite a bit of winter weather occurring over the central and southern Rockies, believe it or not. And that's also part of the reason why the models are having a hard time. How do the global models try to predict a winter storm while at the same time dealing with hurricanes? So it is going to be a little bit unusual, and just kind of bear with us day to day when it comes to these computer models. But you can see there down to the southeast, that is Hurricane Rafael. And just a quick look at the Gulf of Mexico, still some gusty winds and some rough seas out there. Although it's a little bit better than yesterday, but just keep in mind if you're planning on doing some boating that the winds and seas, of course, will be higher around those scattered showers and thunderstorms. So Rafael out there, but we can't let hurricane season go just quite yet. There's another little disturbance that's kind of drifting west, and it's got a low-end chance, but some of the computer models are predicting a Sebastian here in the next coming week. And you can see that that's kind of rotating there just to the northeast of the Leeward Islands, right about in here. So that's something that we'll watch for when it comes to Sebastian possibly coming down the road. So let's focus in more on Rafael, and it is now starting to move toward Cuba, and there's a closer view of it. It's much more organized than it was yesterday. Keep in mind it's over some very warm waters and some high ocean heat content, and also from some fairly low wind shear that's out there right now. But latest advisory there, winds are now 110 miles per hour. Remember, we just got to go up 1 more mile per hour and we are in Category 3 strength. So the current position is there just to the east of the Isle of Youth, and we'll be moving across the western part of Cuba. Notice it does remain a hurricane in the forecast. Major hurricane at landfall in Cuba, and then back down to probably a Category 1 as it drifts westward. And then notice as you get into day 4 and 5, you've got those 2 S's, tropical storm there for Sunday and Monday, because there might be a bit of a stall. And I'll tell you, I've got some models that are actually turning this back to the south as well. So I want to go in and just kind of look at what we've got for the various models. We're pretty much in agreement for today, tomorrow, and really going into Friday. But then as we go into the weekend, again, there's the possibility of a stall, maybe more of a westward drift, and even some models turning it back toward the south. But it is holding it as a Category 2, maybe a low-end Category 3 hurricane between now and the end of the day Thursday. And then by Friday, some of the models start to drop off into that lower-end Category 1. And then by Saturday, which is that 96-hour period there, you can see that we're starting to see it drop off. But again, this is not making a landfall here going out to day 4 or even day 5. It's just because the conditions in the northern part of the Gulf of Mexico won't be as conducive for any strengthening. In fact, it'll be more likely that we would see weakening coming up. But again, if it starts to turn back to the south toward the Bay of Campeche, it could hold its own. So we'll watch out for that possibility too. And as far as any tropical storm force winds reaching the Louisiana coast, the chances are still fairly low, less than 30%. And if anything were to happen in our offshore waters to get stuff going, it's probably not going to be happening until toward the very end of this week. So let's real quick go over the models, the HWRF, and again, these are hurricane-specific models. Notice it keeps it relatively strong, but it starts to kind of drift it off toward the southwest into the Bay of Campeche. So this is a little bit different than what we've been seeing over the past couple of days with some of our global models. But remember, hurricane models, the HWRF as well as the HAFs, they're both just solely focused on hurricanes, just that, not really looking at the stuff that's all around the earth. But the HAFs model also kind of drifting its way a little bit farther to the west and then maybe a turn toward the south. So that is a little bit different than what we're seeing with the GFS. The GFS has been consistent, bringing it closer to the Louisiana coast, but I will tell you that just going out 5 days, it starts to make that turn a little bit toward us. But I've looked at some of the extended frames here going out to day 10, and it kind of starts to follow along with the HWRF and the HAFs model, maybe dissipating and pushing its way back toward the south. So right now, the GFS, inconclusive if we're going to be seeing any effects from that. And the same really goes for the Euro. The Euro keeps it relatively strong there over the central part of the Gulf of Mexico, but notice, kind of like some of the hurricane-specific models, over the next 5 days, it kind of drifts it off toward the west, and we'll have to wait for the next model run to get some additional information. But the trend there, either having a stall over the middle part of the Gulf or perhaps a turn back toward the south. Canadian is still dragging this thing right up toward Louisiana as a weak tropical storm or maybe a tropical depression with a much stronger trough kind of opening up out in the west. There's a bit of a cutoff low that's over the Four Corners right now, and it's kind of uncertain of when that's going to open up and start to slide to the east. If it goes where the Canadian model thinks, that would draw this tropical system closer to the northern Gulf Coast. But if that cutoff low stays out there, then it's not going to be influencing it, and it will take more of a westerly track. So really, to tell you the truth, out of the global models, it does appear that the Canadian is kind of the outlier. The Icon does seem to have it be picked up a bit by a trough if it opens up early enough. But at this point in time, it looks like there's going to be significant weakening. So rain and maybe some gusty winds in the offshore waters would occur based on the Icon model. And I really want to kind of point your attention to the east too. There's still on all four models kind of showing a bit of a tropical system trying to develop over the eastern Bahamas or somewhere north of Puerto Rico, which possibly could be Sebastian. So going into late this weekend, the GFS again has some stalling and some weakening south of Louisiana, maybe in the extended models, turning it a little bit back toward the south. The Euro keeps things a little bit stronger, but it keeps it the farthest away from the Louisiana Gulf Coast. The Canadian model there actually has it making landfall and pulling inland by the time we reach the end of the weekend. And the Icon model really just kind of has it fizzled out and also kind of absorbed by a trough as we head toward the latter part of the weekend. So nothing to worry about today, nothing to worry about really for the rest of the work week, and I don't think we're going to have a whole lot to worry about this weekend either. This process is going to be slowing down, so we might be talking, if it's going to come in our direction, it's not going to be until probably Monday of next week, so that extended forecast will have to be watched pretty closely. Water temperatures, especially over the southern two-thirds of the Gulf of Mexico, are warm enough to sustain tropical weather. If it moves northward, it will encounter much colder waters, and we've got that high heat content there off the Cuban coast, and even into the southeastern part of the Gulf of Mexico, there's still some decent heat content out there. So as long as the wind shear stays low, we could still see either some slight strengthening or at least maintaining as a Category 2 hurricane for a couple of days. But right now it's in a low wind shear environment with high tropical cyclone heat content, so that's why the forecast shows some strengthening. But going through time, it's going to be encountering some colder waters, possibly depending on how far north it goes, but also additional wind shear would kind of tear it apart. So again, sorry, kind of inconclusive on how these effects are going to be for us here in Louisiana. Right now, I'm not super concerned about it. And if the models continue to trend with more of a westerly track, there's a better possibility that this thing could actually turn back toward the south away from the Acadiana region. And again, November is a very different, it's kind of like June. June, you're transitioning from spring going into summer, so the models are kind of juggling what they already know, and there's so many differences when you're in the change of seasons, and the same thing is happening now where the models are really thinking, wow, we should be talking more about winter storms and not tropical weather. So not only us meteorologists, but also the models are in uncharted territory. So you're going to see some wild swings when it comes to the forecast track and intensity here over the next couple of days. So you just kind of have to keep watching and see how the changes evolve over the next several days. A real quick show at the Global Tropics Hazard Outlook. Remember, we talked a little bit about maybe a Sebastian coming down the road. And it looks like the Tropics Hazard Outlook is keeping things at least a little bit more busy than normal for the 3rd and 4th week of November. Hurricane season doesn't officially end until November the 30th, so we're still looking at the possibility of some tropical weather out there. So continue to watch Acadiana Weather Today's Let's Talk Tropics daily right here on YouTube. Well, I hope you like these videos. Please like it, subscribe to my channel, turn on the notifications too, because I'm going to have another update later this afternoon. I'm still working with the high school swimming championships this week. So yesterday had a meet, today I got one, tomorrow I got one. So I'm going to be doing a morning Let's Talk Tropics and an afternoon one for today and again tomorrow. We'll get back to normal on Friday. And also, you can hear all my forecasts on Big 102.1, Planet Radio 106.7, and Freedom 95.1. And in between all of those broadcasts, make sure you follow my social media pages on Facebook and X for all of the updates. I'm meteorologist Dave Baker. I will see you a little bit later this afternoon. Have a great day.